Okay, so for Athena Swan, really what I want to talk about is where did it begin, what has it achieved, and why is it changing now? And to do that, we have to go back to 2005. In case you don't remember 2005, it was the year that Facebook.com got bought as a web address. It opened in UK universities that autumn. It was the year that Dumbledore got needlessly killed off in the penultimate Harry Potter book. It was, sorry, trigger warnings about Dumbledore's death. It was the year that a British Prime Minister was the President of the European Union Council. And it was the year that same-sex civil partnership took place for the first time in Belfast. But perhaps most importantly, it was the year that Athena Swan was born. It had 10 founding members, and it was founded by the Scientific Women's Academic Network, which in turn came out of a national diversity program called the Athena Project. It was set up by women who were research active scientists and engineers, some of them Tom mentioned at the beginning of the day, to advance the careers of academic women in STEM specifically. And before I move on, one of the Gatti Project participants said to me at breakfast, "Oh, but you're the head of Athena Swan, but hasn't it been going for years?" And I just want to acknowledge that I was very much setting up my first Facebook account in 2005. and all the kind of impact that Athena Swan has had, I can take no credit for. So I wanted to kind of credit the members of that network and those first 10 founding members, but also many of the people in the room today and online who have worked tirelessly to peer review applications, lead gender equality work in their departments, develop this community, and develop and evaluate the Charter as well. There are many people here who've done research into the Charter or who, like Sarah, have supported it over the years. So by 2015, the Charter had over 110 members in the UK. It was a requirement for some major research funding, as we've heard. And in May that year, it expanded to recognise the arts and humanities and social sciences and business and law as well. It expanded to support the progression of professional roles, and it expanded to recognise challenges to progression in gender equality more broadly, not just barriers to progression that affected women. And then by 2021, we have over 150 members in the UK. That's about 70% of higher education institutes. There are nearly 1,000 departmental award holders. And perhaps a little bit like Facebook or equal marriage, we've maybe started to take it for granted. So I wanted to take a moment to reflect on the change that's been brought about in the UK higher education sector by Athena Swan, but also why it's been time for it to change now. So most of what I'm going to talk about comes from our 2019 impact evaluation, which you can follow the link if you're interested. But this impact evaluation found that Athena Swan was a key tool for behavioural and cultural change. 93% of people working on Athena Swan agreed that the Charter has had a positive impact on gender issues. And particularly, they reported that the Charter unlocked open communication, honest discussion, real scrutiny of practices, and a commitment to a common purpose within their departments and universities. Something that I found really interesting in the 2011 impact evaluation, people told us that the practices and policies that they implemented through their Athena Swan work tended to benefit everyone in their department, women, men, gender diverse people, and everyone. Of course, without those policies in place, things that academics tell me is, Athena Swan unlocked the recognition of EDI work within our workload allocation models, or Athena Swan unlocked flexible working for us. And those policies, without them, it disproportionately disadvantages women, but it obviously benefits everyone in the department and brings about culture change. Other things that we have found is that women in gold departments, so those departments who've engaged with Athena Swan over many years, tend to be more satisfied with their career development. And there's a greater representation of women in departments that have awards compared to those that don't have awards. And as you see applicants progress on their gender equality journey, so they've had multiple cycles of renewal, they have a trend towards more gender-balanced senior level promotions and make more appointments to women. However, our feedback when Advanced HE became an organisation and merged from ECU, and also the feedback from the impact reports, was that there was a need for change. So there was a frustration about the workload, particularly the administrative workload for Athena Swan, and how that fell disproportionately to women in the department who were often volunteering. A need for Athena Swan to be increasingly efficient and consistent in its peer review, and a recommendation that we explore standardised measures of culture to be able to support departments and universities to assess culture, but also to really evaluate and have those more rigorous measures of evaluation of the impact of the Charter, as Pavel talked about right at the beginning of the day. So Advance HE commissioned an independent review of Athena Swan in 2018, I think, and the recommendations came in 2020. And there were around 40 recommendations, varying levels of detail. But at the front of the review, if you've read it, there are kind of 8 key messages. And the key messages for Advance HE in the sector were that Athena Swan should continue to be a major driver of gender equality practice in the UK, that it's timely for it to change, and specifically that it needed to address the administrative burden and the application process needed to be streamlined, particularly to reduce the administrative burden on women staff, that the assessment process needed to ensure consistency and transparency of award outcomes to retain the confidence of the sector. It talked about the important role of positive and supportive cultures in driving gender equality and making that a greater part of the assessment process. The Charter must embrace the wider definition of gender, that Advance HE needed to provide more training and support to applicants, and that the governance structure needed to ensure that the Charter was owned and led by the sector. So in 2021, in June last year, we published a new application materials and principles and a kind of transformed charter. I would say that's not the end of the transformed charter. Some of those other recommendations in terms of more training and support for applicants, we're very much still implementing support around looking at systems around data, but certainly the application materials are out there having kind of been co-created with the sector, certainly been overseen by our Athena Swan Governance Committee. And the aims of the Transformed Charter are a paradigm shift from prescription to autonomy and flexibility for institutions, a reduction in administrative burden, and Advance HE moving from a judging to a developmental and supporting approach. I'm not going to talk about all the application materials and how they've changed and the criteria because we couldn't possibly do it justice in 10 minutes. But just to highlight some of the key changes and particularly how those changes relate to the recommendations from the review. So we've streamlined our applications, and part of that's been about reducing the amount of data that we ask for in our applications and making sure every piece of data is going to be fundamental to analysing an institution's gender equality issues, and that it's going to be relevant for the vast majority of institutions. We've also, as part of streamlining our applications, created a greater focus on priorities. So we're asking departments and institutions to discuss their key findings within the application, but mostly to evidence and justify key priorities rather than show us every single piece of their working. We've clarified the award criteria and we've overhauled our peer review processes. So we've recruited a new pool of peer reviewers and trained them with the new processes, and we have new terms of reference and so on and so forth. And I can talk to you about the details another time if people are interested. As part of making culture a greater part of the assessment, we have developed and are piloting a departmental culture survey to create a standardised method of assessing culture with the assistance of Pavel and many others. Intersectionality and gender as a spectrum are increasingly a part of the assessment and are recognised in the Charter. We have a new member offer and dedicated advisors to support our applicants to use Athena Swan as a tool to progress their gender equality work. And all of this has been overseen and led by an Athena Swan Governance Committee who are made up of representatives from the sector and are very much part of that idea that the Charter must be led by and for the sector. And as Advance HE, we are merely the custodians of this Charter that's obviously been created back in 2005 by the sector. That's what I'm going to say for now. I'm going to pass on to Sarah, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk at the end.